Today we're looking at a very different animal. It's not an isopod. Some might consider this a little creepy crawly. I don't think so, and I hope that by the end of this video you don't either. Have you guessed what it is? That's right, it's a millipede. In fact, this is the Flameleg Millipede, and I'll throw the scientific name right here. I'm going to share some information about these wonderful animals. We're going to set them up in a new enclosure, and make sure you stick around till the end for some very key information.
The Isopod Vlog.
We're going to slow this millipede way down and you can enjoy the beautiful movement of this guy while I talk about some of the details about the flameleg millipedes. First of all, they are found in the Philippines around riverbanks in very moist areas. They expect a very humid hide. And you can accomplish that in many different ways. We're going to see later on when I set up the new enclosure how I do it specifically. But make sure you have lots and lots of ventilation for these guys. There's a surprising amount of varying information on the internet about the lifespan of the flamelegs. It seems like they only live about 2 years or so, and there are some reports that after they lay eggs, that they do pass away. A key difference between millipedes and centipedes, and you may know this already, is that millipedes are not venomous. Centipedes can be venomous, but millipedes are not. However, having said that, the flamelegs certainly can be a little toxic, and you should wear gloves while handling these animals. For this video, I handled them without gloves, but I went and washed my hands afterwards. Let's talk about the flamelegs enclosure for just a second. I just mentioned the enclosure should be kept humid and it should have plenty of ventilation, but there's another factor that's just as important, and that's the substrate. Many people will use coir fiber or peat moss or straight dirt in their substrate, but what these animals really need is a substrate that's made up of decaying wood and decaying leaves. Now you can mix in chunks of decaying wood and decaying leaves into your substrate. That takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, because a lot of people will just mix in leaves, and it really should be decaying leaves so they get that good first start right off the bat. The easiest way to do this is find a good source for this substrate that includes decaying leaves and decaying wood and go with that. And there's a couple of really good vendors, and we'll talk about one a little bit later in the video. Now, I do a lot of research on the animals that I keep, and I've been watching a YouTube channel called Bugs in Cyberspace for a long time. Peter really knows his bugs, and he knows how to keep them and maintain them the best possible way. I'm going to go ahead and throw a link to both his website and his YouTube channel in the descriptions below for you. So knowing the special requirements of these beautiful animals, I wanted to make sure that I set them up the best that I possibly could. Went out to Peter's site, Bugs in Cyberspace, and ordered 2 of the millipede substrate bags. The bag on the left is the millipede substrate. The bag on the right is millipede substrate compost blend. And because Peter is such an amazing guy, he included a container of hardwood oak chips ground up that you sprinkle on the top of the substrate, and 4 bags of leaves as well, hardwood leaves. Thank you very much, Peter. And time for another shameless plug. I didn't mention earlier that I received these wonderful animals from Dan Thomas of Animal House Pets and Supplies. Thank you, Dan. I mentioned earlier 3 key components to keeping these animals healthy. The first is lots of ventilation, and you can see this tub has lots of ventilation. I wish it were a little bit deeper, as these millipedes need at least a depth of their length, which is about 4 to 5 inches. Another key component is decaying wood and decaying leaves. While Bugs in Cyberspace sent me some bags of leaves and also the decaying wood, I'm going to use pieces from my collection that have already started the decaying process in this new tub. And as you know me from my previous isopod videos, I love sphagnum moss, and I'll be using sphagnum moss in this enclosure to keep that humidity up in the entire enclosure. At this point, we're going to go ahead and add the millipede substrate compost blend to the enclosure. This is the Bugs in Cyberspace mix, and you can see that it is just beautiful, just perfect substrate for these millipedes. We're now set with the substrate, and that was just about a whole bag of the substrate mix from Bugs in Cyberspace. Let's go ahead and throw on a sprinkling of this oak hardwood chips on top, and we should be all set for the next step. I'm going to take one of the 4 bags of leaves that Peter generously included in this shipment, and we're going to spread that around the top of the substrate. Now I'm going to take those leaves and decaying wood that I had established in another container and add them to this container. I'm only going to be taking about a handful of leaves and adding them to this container, but that's a great kickstart. And if you know me, I hate these leaf stems. I'll be pulling all of the leaf stems off of these leaves. And now, my secret weapon. This is the sphagnum moss. I add the sphagnum moss to this enclosure, and that's going to keep the humidity up and especially the moisture in the area underneath the sphagnum moss up for these millipedes. And I'm still finding leaf stems. Got to take care of those leaf stems. I think we're good to go, and on to our next step. I'm going to go ahead and include decaying wood that I've collected a long time ago and let sit in another enclosure to continue that decaying process. Here I'm adding a lot of very, very small pieces that I think that the millipedes will find easier to eat. Here's a question we get all the time. How do you know if a piece of wood is good or not? If it's hardwood and it flakes off like this, it's perfect. Next up, we add the water. And this is really a very, very difficult thing for beginners to know how much water they should add to an enclosure. We're going to throw about 2 cups of water in here just to start off. I think it's better to start off a little bit drier than way too wet. I'll add some water to this end of the enclosure. We'll go ahead and check this enclosure probably the next day or two just to make sure that it's damp enough but not wet. And I think we're good to go. Let's go ahead and add the millipedes to their new enclosure. You can tell the old enclosure is a little bit shallow. I've used this enclosure for about 2 months or so. They're just ready for a new enclosure. When I purchased these millipedes, Dan from Animal House was kind enough to allow me to purchase 3 of these Flameleg Millipedes instead of just 1. I'm certainly hoping that I have a male and 2 females, but if there's a male and a female in this group, I would be just as pleased as anything. Ultimately, I'll keep them for a while and make sure that I have a pair. If I don't, I'm going to see if I can find the opposite sex from another source. You can see this one is adjusting well. They're going to burrow down just as soon as they get into this new enclosure. I'll put the other 2 away. I'll go ahead and check them later today, and I'll certainly check them tomorrow just to make sure everything is okay in this new enclosure. Here you can see the second one, and as I lift up this piece of cork bark, you can see that third one. And in goes the third one. You can see the first one's gone, the second one is halfway buried, and the third one is disappearing now. We'll go ahead and add some springtails to this culture just as a cleanup crew. Not too many, just enough to kind of clean things up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put a carrot in. We'll go ahead and throw some zucchini in probably tomorrow to see if they'll eat anything in their new enclosure, but that's pretty much all that we'll do in the next couple of days. And finally, let me mention, if you've stuck around this long to the video, if you remember last year we did a special giveaway. And I counted comments and different activity that we had on last year's videos, 2019, and I'll be doing the same thing for 2020. We'll have a special giveaway, probably 2 giveaways at the end of 2020. So make sure that you really participate in these videos. Make sure you leave comments, make sure you like. If you share the videos, that's even more important. You'll find out more information as the year progresses, but let me emphasize again, if you want to be part of that giveaway at the end of the year, make sure you really contribute to these videos. I really, really appreciate the support that we've received from last year, and I'm really looking forward to the end of this year and doing something special to everybody that supports this channel. It's been growing very, very quickly. It's a very strong channel, and I really appreciate everything everybody does. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching, Isopod and Millipede fans. Leave a comment below. Hit that like button if you like the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification all so that you don't miss another video. Thanks again for watching.